for tuning into the Greater Mount Zion broadcast, where we introduce people to a greater leader, a greater way, and a greater life.
Mike was eating dinner with his family. His 8-year-old daughter had 6 green beans left on her plate. She looked at her father and said, "Dad, I'm about to pop. I can't finish my green beans." He said, You're not going to pop." She said, "Yes, I am." To which her father said, "Take a risk. I guarantee you'll survive." And she said, "Dad, I can't eat another bite." And so Mike tried another method. He realized that they had sweet potato pie. Sweet potato pie was his 8-year-old girl's favorite dessert. So he said to her, "Would you like a piece of sweet potato pie?" And she said, "Absolutely." She pushed the plate with the 6 green beans away. And then her father said, "How in the world can you eat a nice piece of sweet potato pie and you can't eat 6 little green beans?" And she stood up from the table, Bushing, and she said, "Dad, this is my vegetable stomach, and this is my meat stomach. And both of those are full. But this is my dessert stomach. It's empty. I want a piece of pie." Now, let me ask you a question. With what stomach do you hunger for God? Do you hunger for God with your vegetable stomach or with your dessert stomach? Do you hunger for God like you hunger for green beans or like you hunger for sweet potato pie? In our text on today, Jesus makes it clear. Those who experience the greatest joys in life are those who have hunger pangs for the things of God. They hunger for God with their dessert stomach. Listen to what your Lord says, your King. He said, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled, they will be satisfied." What kind of hunger is this? This is not what we typically think of as hunger, that little itch we get in our stomach at lunchtime. It's not this casual hunger that prompts us to eat in this culture. You know, for the most part in our culture, most of us really don't know real hunger. Nobody in this room, except for maybe 1 or 2, really understands what it's like to be hungry. We don't really get that. Our stomach says to us around 12 o'clock, "What's up?" And we immediately feed it a snack or a meal. But the kind of hunger Jesus is talking about is born out of real food scarcity. It's the kind of hunger that becomes the number one priority of your life, satisfying it when you have it. When you have this level of hunger, everything else is infinitely fourth in priority on your agenda. Finding food is priority 1, 2, and 3 on your agenda when you're hungry like this. You say, "PC, where do you get that from?" Well, the word for hunger literally means to be famished. The word for thirst, it means to be dry, to be dehydrated. It means to have an ardent thirst. And so he's not talking about some kind of casual lunchtime hunger. He's talking about a passionate hunger. And so what he's really telling us is that those who hunger the most for God are those who live the most robust, the most enjoyable lives. They will be filled. This hunger is not only passionate, but this hunger is continuous. It is continuous and progressive. It's not just a seasonal hunger. It's not something you get every now and then. The verbs are in the active voice. And so the idea in the present tense. And so the idea is that they are hungry and they keep on getting hungry for God. They are thirsty and they keep on thirsting. And God, watch this, keeps on filling them. He keeps on filling and satisfying their hunger, and he keeps on quenching their thirst. And so what he's talking about is this ongoing pattern of hungering and being satisfied, and thirsting, and God providing what we need to drink. And even in the act of being filled, we get hungry again, because the righteousness of God is so enjoyable. It's like sweet potato pie. Even though you're full, you want a little bit more. This is hungering for God with our dessert stomach, but it's not something seasonal. It's not something based on the vicissitudes of my life. So when I'm going through this and I'm going through that, I hunger more. No, he's talking about those who have this ongoing passion for God. And God becomes their greatest ambition. God is not a means, but God indeed is the goal. He is the goal. They hunger for God with their dessert stomach. That's what it is. Now, when you and I hunger for God like this, it leads to a life that's rich with satisfaction. It is the best life. And all throughout the scriptures, the Bible teaches us about the joys and celebrates the greatness and the life that is produced by righteousness. My favorite passage is Proverbs chapter 4, verses 18 and 19, because it talks about the long-term benefits of living righteously. It talks about the long-term benefits of hungering for the will of God in your life. I want you to see it, Proverbs 4, 18 through 19. This is a great memory verse. It says this: the path of the righteous is like the morning sun. Anybody watch the sunrise recently? When it peeks out over the horizon, see, it's just one beam, right? And it gets brighter and brighter and brighter. And that's what he's saying the path of the righteous is like. It's like the morning sun shining ever brighter to the what? To the full light of day. But the way of the wicked is different. The way of the wicked is like deep darkness, and they do not know what makes them stumble. Look up here. I need you to hear this. What he's saying is that as we hunger for righteousness and experience and engage it in our lives, here's what happens. Our path gets increasingly clear. We become increasingly comfortable in our lives, less confused. It becomes increasingly rewarding. Life becomes increasingly meaningful. It's like the sun. It peeks out. It just shoots a ray over the horizon, and it gets brighter and brighter and brighter. He says righteousness compounds in value over time. And so those who live righteously, life gets better and better and better. Now, I didn't say those who go to church, life gets better and better and better. He says those who live righteously, life becomes increasingly more clear. It becomes more rewarding. But this is not the case with the wicked. It says those who are wicked, they live in deep darkness. And instead of becoming more clear about life, more clear about the purpose of life, they become increasingly more confused, increasingly more discouraged, increasingly more disillusioned. They increasingly make similar mistakes that they made last year, and they cannot figure out why they keep on falling. Because they're walking in ever-increasing darkness. And so here's what he's saying. They don't even know why their life is where it is, but we know. We know. Here's why. They hungered for God like they hungered for vegetables, not like they hungered for dessert. Now, hunger for God and growth spiritually go together. If you and I are going to grow spiritually, we have to have a real hunger for God. A lot of times we think that in order to grow spiritually, we got to get another church. Oh, we got to get another pastor. Oh, we got to finally pay our bills off. Oh, we got to get another man. Got to get another woman. Got to get a better marriage. I got to have better children. These children are bad. They make me cuss all the time. In other words, we think there's all these other things that we need in order to grow spiritually. But no, that's not what you need, my friend. What you and I need to grow spiritually is real hunger for God. You got to want this more than you want other things. You and I have got to have God as our goal. God as our ambition. That's the only thing that is required to grow spiritually. And when you want God like that, you become more creative. When you and I want God like that, we become more determined than we've ever been. There was a young man who came to the famous teacher Socrates and said, Socrates, I want knowledge, and I know you can give it to me. Socrates said, okay, well, follow me. Socrates goes to the ocean, walks into the water, and without warning, Bruce takes the man, puts him in the ocean, holds him down like he's about to drown him. This young man is fighting for air. Socrates has overpowered him. And when he finally starts to stop struggling, like he is about to drown, Socrates lets him go, pulls him out the water, leaves him on the shore, goes back into the marketplace like nothing has happened. Once the man gathered himself, he recovered, he got his air back. He goes back to the market where Socrates is. And he says to the great teacher, why did you try to drown me? Socrates looked at him and said this. He says, when I had you under the water, what did you want more than anything in the world? Somebody tell me what the young man said. He said, I wanted air. And then he said this. When you want knowledge the way you wanted air, you won't need me or anybody else to help you get it. And friend, it's the same way in our spiritual lives. We think we need so many other things before we can get things right with God. Oh, if we could just have more money. Oh, if we just had better genes, if we had a better mama, a better daddy, if we had a better spouse. But friend, let me tell you something. When you want God like you want air, when you want God like you want air and like you want food and like you want something to drink when you are thirsty, when you and I want God like that, we will find him and we'll discover that we don't need any of these other things, because hunger is the mother of creativity. Hunger is the mother of determination. Hunger is the mother of competence, because I will do anything that I have to do to get to the water of God. What you need is want to. How much of God do you want? Some people only want about $20 worth of God. Not enough to explode their soul or challenge their presuppositions. Not enough to change the way they see people or life. Not enough to change the way they treat their spouse. Just $20 worth of God, please. But friend, when you want God like silver and gold, you will grow up spiritually. Now, Jesus gives us a tremendous, tremendous example of what it looks like to be hungry for God. On one day, Jesus and his disciples decided they were going to Samaria. Actually, Jesus made the decision. He said, I got to get there. I'm going to Samaria. They left Judea on their way to Samaria. It's a 2-day walk. They stopped in this city called Sychar. Jesus hangs out at a well. Some of you remember the story. He is tired and hungry. The disciples are tired and hungry. They've been walking for 2 days. And so the disciples go to get something to eat. Jesus stays at the well, and there's this woman who comes to draw water from the well, and she had been thirsty for a long time. You know this woman. She had 5 husbands, and all of them ended in divorce. And she said, listen, I don't want to jinx this one. You just move in. And so she just had a live-in lover. Y'all didn't think that was in the Bible. That's in the Bible. And Jesus says to her, you know, you've been thirsty for me all along. Neither one of those husbands, the one now can't provide it, but I'm the one that you've been looking for all your life. And she actually believed it. She actually believed that he was the fountain of living water. The Bible says she goes back to the town and she begins to tell people about this man who told her everything that she ever did. Now, here's what I want you to see. After this woman responded to him positively, Gabe, the Bible says that Jesus was not hungry anymore. When he got there, he was hungry. Once he did the will of God, he was no longer hungry. His appetite had been stolen by the moment, the kingdom moment he had experienced. And I want you to hear what happens after that. Verse 31 through 35 of John 4. It says, meanwhile, his disciples urged him, Rabbi, eat something. They're urging him to eat. They know he must be hungry. But he said to them, I have food to eat that you know nothing about. While you were gone, I've been eating. Put it back up there. Put it back up there. Go to the next verse. Verse 33. And then his disciples said to each other, could someone have brought him food? And still thinking on an earthly plane. Still thinking in non-spiritual terms. Verse 34, Jesus explained what had happened. He said, my food is to what? Do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work. Go to verse 35. Don't you have a saying? It's still 4 months until harvest. Well, I tell you, open your eyes and look out at the fields. They are ripe for harvest already. In other words, the very persons that you think are not ready to come to God, they're coming to God. This woman was voted most unlikely to get saved. Okay? And she's coming to God. And so don't say, oh, later, 5 years from now, the harvest will be there. Oh, I'll do something great for God 4 months from now. No, you can do something great for God right now. Now, here are the two evidences of spiritual hunger that we see in this passage, and they're quite instructive. When you and I are spiritually hungry, it changes what we want. Those things that we used to depend on for self-worth and meaning, they no longer mean the same thing. Even if we want them, we don't want them for the same reasons, and we don't want them with the same passion. Note what happens in the text. Jesus was hungry. He sends the disciples. They go get food. He has a moment, an encounter, a kingdom moment in which he is demonstrating the righteousness of God, and he's no longer hungry. He lost his appetite. Friend, this is how you know you're hungry for God. The things that you used to depend on for joy, you start losing your appetite for them. You no longer are depending on things that are worldly for your self-worth, for your self-esteem. You're no longer asserting yourself in ways that you used to assert yourself. That lust for attention, that lust for the prideful positioning of life. It's no longer a part of what you crave anymore. Why? Because your appetite has changed. It begins to change what you want. And then it becomes kind of uncomfortable at times, because people who want what you used to want, they notice that you don't want what you used to want the way you used to want it. And they're not feeling as comfy around you now. Because we used to want this at the same level, but it's like you're not participating in my joy now. And it's not that you're trying to be sedity. It's not that you forgot where you came from, but God has been doing something on the inside, and he's been changing your taste. What do you want now that you didn't used to want? Wow. So that's evidence that you're getting increasingly hungry. Here's the next one. We see in this passage another indicator of spiritual hunger is we see it changes what we see when we look at the world. It not only changes what we want, changes our appetite, it changes what we see. We begin to see the world as God sees it. Look at what Jesus said. Jesus sees this world as a world that is ready to be gathered for God. He says, don't say, 4 months from now we'll make a difference. People's lives will be changed. Don't say that. He says, all I got to do is look at the fields. They're ready to be harvested. When you and I are hungry for God, we see all the opportunities to make a difference for God around us. Friend, understand this. To a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And when you're hungry for God, you see opportunities to eat everywhere around you. Have you ever been going somewhere and you were hungry? As you drove along the highway, you saw every restaurant, McDonald's, Burger King, Whataburger, Pizza Hut. Why? Because you were hungry. And friend, when you and I are hungry for righteousness, we see the opportunities around us. And other people are saying, oh, there are no opportunities to serve God. There's no opportunities to make a difference. No, they're just not hungry enough. Because when you're hungry, you see food.
Thank you for tuning into the Greater Mount Zion broadcast, where we introduce people to a greater leader, a greater way, and a greater life.